Now, tonight I want to bring you the story of censorship on Canadian university campuses and gender inequality under Canada's laws. Last month, Queen's University student and feminist activist Danielle D'entremont was assaulted and punched multiple times in the face by a stranger, but someone, she claims, knew her name. Now, Danielle links the attack to her opposition to an event being hosted on that campus by men's rights group, the Canadian Association for Equality, CAF, where University of Ottawa professor Janice Fiamenko, who's been on this show several times, was scheduled to speak. The group has condemned the attack and this week offered a $1,000 reward to help bring Danielle's attacker to justice. Other men's groups have also offered reward money, good for them. Unfortunately, feminists at Queen's and other universities don't have the same sympathies for their opponents and attempt to silence opposing views at every turn. Here's a bunch of them, publicly funded lefties, silencing a woman with whom they dare to disagree.
Can you hear me? All right. Well, I want to thank Ryan Brown for inviting me to speak here and the Canadian Association for Equality for sponsoring my talk. It's my hope that as a result of my talk, a few of you may decide to... Okay, you know, it's the signature of a totalitarian ideology to attempt to quash dissent. So every time you interrupt, you're merely showing your repressive tendencies. You're not showing anything about your virtue. Okay. Let's forget it. So you think this is a victory?
What idiots. I mean, there's freedom and democracy for you. Goodness. Frankly, look, I have no idea if the repulsive physical attack on the young woman was politically motivated. I don't know. But neither does she, neither does the victim. We just don't know. Neither do CAF and the rest. The greater point, however, is that groups like CAF are tired of being accused of extremism and claim that contemporary feminism marginalizes and libels men. Well, as for the former, I'm not particularly interested. I'm not an expert. The latter is true. Men are treated unfairly. And it's not only gender feminists who lie about men, but society in general. I don't mean TV shows and jokes about bumbling dads or clumsy husbands. It doesn't matter. I mean a legal and sociological campaign to remove the rights of men as husbands and partners, and in particular as fathers. I'm a very lucky man. Very happy marriage, wonderful wife, don't know why she married me, 4 great kids. I've never been a victim, but I did work as the men's columnist, believe it or not, for the Globe and Mail for 2 years, a job I didn't ask for. I was given it by the editor. I couldn't say no. My eyes were suddenly opened. I mean, seriously, I had no idea. I was inundated with letters and stories of men, good men, who had lost their homes, their savings, their freedom, their children, after false and malicious complaints. By the way, there are several organizations that have ample evidence of all this and may be able to help you if you're going through something similar. Now, I want to emphasize that neither I nor Sun News are in any way endorsing them, just suggesting them as possibilities to people who may be desperate. You can speak with, I don't know, Ross Virgin at In Search of Justice. His phone number, it's not his home number, 416, there it is, 240-0258. There is FACT, Fathers Are Capable Too, and I think we're putting a website up, along with the Canadian Men's Rights Groups Directory, and that's a portal, you can go there and find lots of others. Anecdotes, all with similar themes, really. A married couple with children, okay? The marriage falls apart, it happens. Nobody's fault in particular. She gets a lawyer. Suddenly, allegations that she's been abused. It's not true, but it means he has to leave the home, has hardly any rights, he can't see the children. They divorce. He has to pay a lot of money in support, even though she's already with another man and doing very well financially. He now lives in a basement apartment. He's allowed to see the kids every second weekend, 1 night a week, but often she says, oh, they're not well, or she's just not there when he goes to pick the children up. After repeated pleas, he shouts, he bangs on the door. She calls the police. He's arrested, convicted, put on probation, humiliated. You think this is a fantasy? I've heard this. I've seen it proven, time after time. I can think of 2 men, I'm not going to name them, you know who they are famous, wept in front of me when they told me about this. Or how about the couple who argue? It's bad, they hit each other, it's awful. Or maybe she hits him and he does nothing in response, but the cops come and only he is arrested. Don't expect sympathy or fairness from the police and the judges. This is political law now, and they're terrified of finding against a woman accuser. Men having to pay extremely high levels of alimony, even when the man is poor and the woman wealthy. Men lied about, assumed to be in the wrong, treated like natural abusers. Yeah, I know you've heard all the stories about abusive men, women victims, deadbeat dads, and some of that, of course it's true, but nowhere near the numbers that we've been told about and told to believe. Almost all of the feminist movement's demands were given, and rightly so, decades ago. And while there is clearly still work to be done, we don't live in the 1890s. By the way, try researching how many suffragette leaders became fascists and Nazis later in their careers. I mean that. Feminists silencing contrary speech on campus, women's studies courses that waste minds and money, feminist law that denies and defies equality, and a gender war created when one doesn't really exist. You know, it's enough to make you cry, but real men don't cry, do they?
We're not super interested in talking to you, first of all, but basically we're here to shut down an event that is promoting the patriarchy.
You're doing it really well.
Promoting the patriarchy. Jeez. And the joke is on us, we're paying for his education. You heard the monologue. Now let's speak to Robert Samery, director, or one of the directors of the public policy group Canadians for, well, let's ask him about Canadian Association for Equality. Canadian Association for Equality, that sounds very broad. You mean when it comes to gender, don't you?
We do mean when it comes to gender, and we focus primarily on men and boys. We obviously take women and girls into account, but our focus is really on the discrimination that's harmful to men and boys. It's been missed in society. It's been, men have been denigrated, boys have been denigrated, and they're losing pace with what they need to be doing.
A lot of people watching this, male and female, would say, are you kidding me? Men still rule, men are in charge, men dominate?
I understand that. I understand why as well. Typically, when people talk about gender equality, they talk about it from a woman's perspective and from a historic woman's perspective, not a contemporary one. And they listen to numbers like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 or 1 in 2 women who are going to be sexually assaulted.
Oh,
the term is usually rape, it's not sexual assault.
It's rhetoric, it's nonsense, it's unhelpful, it's untrue.
And there's a lot of that goes around without any qualification, and people don't check into it. They don't check into what happens to boys in public school, for example, right at the very beginning. Boys have become second-class citizens, and I can tell you from my personal experience, not that I wanted to find this, but I have a sister who has nieces in public school. They put on a play that I went to. There were about 40, 45 children in that play. It was a fantastic play. Really very, very good. Out of the 45 kids, 3 of them were boys.
Yeah, but hold on. This is where I do separate from some of the organizations, you being one of them. Because there are only 3 kids in a play, most boys don't want to appear on stage and act. I mean, there's a sociological animus, I suppose. I've put 4 kids through public education. I have not detected that at all. There are certainly certain pressures on girls to maybe perform well, maybe boys to not be the educational one, but I don't agree with you on that. When it comes to the law, though, I do believe there's a double standard. When it comes to custody of children, if a man is abusive, it's the end of the story. But if he's been a good dad and she's been a good mum, but the marriage is over, why is it that the mother always, not sometimes, but always gets most of the custody of the child, but the man has to do most of the paying?
Well, historically, it tries to correct a wrong. And historically, it was men that always got the child. And they got the child because children were seen as property, and men were seen as the breadwinners, the only ones capable of paying the bill.
That was a long time ago, though.
It's a long time ago. So things changed, and the divorce laws started to take into account early child development, and thought there was a thinking that women were the best mothers, were the best nurturers.
Well, the best mothers, yeah.
Mothers are the best mothers, but they're the best nurturers, which today is not the case, but that's where we're coming from. Men, by the way, still had to pay all of the bills. Yeah. They weren't...
I actually think that mothers may be more important than fathers. But I don't think there's much in it. But perhaps they are, but one night a week and every second weekend is nothing like approaching equality.
One of the things that we're working very hard toward is an equal shared parenting bill, C-560, which is going up for a second reading very soon. And there are a lot of jurisdictions that have this kind of legislation either in place or coming forward. And what it says
You mean
is...
other countries, you mean?
Other countries, the United States has many states that are going through this legislation as well. And what it says is that the presumption is, unless you show otherwise, 50-50 custody to both mothers and fathers.
And when they have custody, I assume they're going to be paying for those children, so it would deal with the finance issue too.
Well, the finance issue wouldn't change at all. It would still be the same as it is today, because in legislation, there are no differences between men and women. It's the people who earn the money and the people who spend the money that are taken into account. And that still wouldn't change under this kind of legislation, but I'll tell you, feminists in particular are strongly, vocally opposed to this kind of legislation. Your guess is as good as mine as to why they would oppose that kind of legislation, but the science, the sociological science shows that children do better with maximum time between parents.
They probably do better with both parents in the house raising the children at the same time, and maybe divorce is far less attractive than many people think. You know why some feminists, not all, some would oppose it, because the idea of the woman as a victim underpins much of feminist ideology.
That's very true, and that's kind of the mythology. And if you dig a little bit more deeply behind it, you find that it falls away, and there is no rationale for it.
Just last few seconds, I don't want to talk about the case in particular, but you've offered $1,000 if the culprit is found.
Yes.
Do you have any idea who attacked this girl and why?
Well, we've been in touch with the police. We stay in touch with the police. They have absolutely no clue. We want this person to be found. We've been associated with this attack.
Which I think is terribly unfair.
And we want to find
She
out.
has no idea. She said that the man used her name, but she has no idea who it was.
That's correct.
I mean, Queens is not that big. People know each other. If he was involved in your group or was an anti-feminist, I'm sure somebody would have recognized. But interesting stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael.